Hello, everyone! Blue Star Saber here once again to do another manga chapter review of, well, not one, but two manga chapters reviews of My Hero Academia. I'm joined by none other than the one, the only, LuckyChi7.
I think we should rephrase this in saying two chapters counting last week. Otherwise, people are going to be like, "Wait, we had two chapters this week."
Okay, fine. Let's see, guys. Let's see. I forgot to review. Well, actually, I was trying to review the chapter last week, but you were too busy. I forgot to tell Margarita and all that stuff. So it's like, okay, but yes, but everyone say hello to Lucky Chi. He's back after a very long absence on my channel from streaming My Hero Academia, and probably the first stream he's been on my channel this year.
Yeah, more or less.
Let's see. I'm hoping Mangareader will hopefully join us, but I think last time I checked he was eating and all that stuff, but who knows? Let's see. I've messaged him saying that we've started now and asked him if he can join us when he can, but heck. Anyway, we've got two chapters, 340 and 341. Let's see. We Can Be Heroes Part 3 and I think We Can Be Heroes -1, if I recall.
It's very Kubo-esque. Like, if y'all remember Bleach, when it came to how Kubo would name his chapter titles, it kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, huh, okay. I'm not saying that's bad. I just think that's interesting that taking that approach.
But yeah. But anyway, as you can probably tell, I've subtitled them one-to-one with a teacher and the Mutant Revolution. And as we discuss these chapters, you will probably see why. That stuff. Granted, let's see, I think the last time Lucky Chi was here on my channel, we were talking about Stars and Stripes versus, let's see, Shigaraki. But I would ask him what his entire thoughts are on all the things that have transpired. But I think we're probably a bit short on time on his end.
Yeah.
Let's just see, and we'll probably get. Let's see, and when the stuff we'll probably discuss in the chapter, we'll probably bring it up all the same. Anyway, we cut back to the Central Hospital where they apparently collaborate secret talks in the key facilities with like the police and the heroes and all that stuff. As All Might is saying how they're waiting for Oyama's exam results, while the Hawks is also there. Let's see, with Hawks saying that this means we'll be forced to take decisive action and all of that stuff. Let's see, and apparently everyone in this room has been deemed trusty enough to work on this current situation. Let's see. While Hawks explains while Endeavor and Best Genus are out in the field commanding the other heroes to, deal with this current situation and all that stuff. And due to the fact that this is a classified meeting, had to be thrown together in in a rush. They're keeping their circle small and safe and all that stuff. Kind of like how when the whole truth about Midoriya's quirk and all that stuff. But yeah. Besides Hawks, the only other former hero that's here is Wild Pussycat's Ragdoll. Let's see. As she took comments, she shows the rest of the Wild Pussycats crew would have been here if they could and all that stuff. Let's see. Because apparently they've been left out the loop, though. Hawk says that it's nothing personal against them. It's just questioning their loyalty and all that stuff. Though she, of course, goes back to her old meow personality, if you will, of randoms meow. And apparently, she explains that out there, the villains are out there using her Swirch quirk for evil. So she's here to help however she can, at least. And she wants to hear the key points of the plan, as Oh my! It has brought up a teacher's board. I'm not sure if it's a chalkboard or just a felt tip pen board, if you will, and a few buttons on there or magnets. All Might goes on about whether or not they're talking about Plan A or Plan B. Let's see. All Might says that whatever they have to do, they have to split up. As closer look, the pins look like both All for One and Tamura Shigaraki. So their plan is to pretty much split them up regardless and all that stuff. And based on the data recorded by Stars and Stripes' battle, as I think we see one of her US pilots there, Tomo Shigaraki is now more powerful than he's ever been. In fact, apparently he's even stronger than All for One, which I think that was what All for One intended. And apparently, everyone who witnessed the fight in Camino has a decent idea of how strong All for One is. Well, to be fair, that was All for One in his weakened state. We have no idea how strong he would have been in his prime. As All Might goes on about how they have, they have mind melt when they're exploited when attacking Tartarus and all that stuff, because, the two of their minds connected. Which is even goes beyond like communications of radios and all that stuff. All Might comments that should they attack together, they have no hope of victory. Well, to be fair, it's technically fighting two of the same bad guy, right? Let's see. With one of the guys, with the US pilot asking why did they double team Star then and all that stuff. As All Might mentioned, she could have spoken his name All for One, meaning New Order's rules would have worked on him, I think. And apparently to win this war, we need to get those two at least 10 kilometers apart. That's the bare minimum requirement, apparently, they need to do. And of course, as All Might's police friend says, they're doing to make sure everything that won't happen. As All Might says that LuckyChi is right. So, let's see, as All Might points out that the other dangers they have is like the all-consuming flames of Darby, who is just as powerful as Endeavor and all that stuff. Are you back, LuckyChi?
I'm in here.
Okay. Let's see. As Darby has shown himself to be quite the looming threat, and the firewall to protect those two. As Ragdoll says, so in order to split up All for One and Shigaraki, they need to split up Dabby and all that stuff. As the Cat Lieutenant says, not just Dabby. All Might says all of them, and apparently every one of the major operatives in the League of Villains, if you will, or the Paranormal Liberation Front. They must divide and conquer one by one. To have that end, they have to lure each of these villains to their defeats. As one of the police guys says, that's really optimistic thinking, don't you think? Well, one of the others says easier said than done. Which All Might tells them that this is why they need a strategy to happen. And All Might's police friend says, you mean Oyama? With All Might coming while the boy is still in terminal, born quirkless, his very life was being exploited, as a resource and all that stuff. Well, the police sympathizes, but he's telling All Might not to weigh their own feelings against the fate of the world. And the fact that he did turn his back on a decent society for everyone. And given his position, the police guy's position, he has to proceed with caution. Though All Might, being the ever noble hero he is, says that he has faith in Oyama, and he wants to trust him, but he also does trust Urti. He does trust his teacher, Shota Aizawa, as we see those two meeting face to face through like a screen glass, like you would see in a prison. Oyama is still strapped and are pretty miserable and that stuff. And some sort of cartoonish rooster, I think, at least from the way I'm seeing it. I know, at least from what I can tell. Let's see. At least from what I can tell, is telling Etsy Ayazawa that after a full exam, they found no, witty trigger bombs inside, no irregular, no downsides to like Ayama and all that stuff. Brain was normal, nothing that could cause All for One to cause Ayama to snap. Let's see. So, with Shota considering that with like what happened with Legi Naga was something that All for One probably attained after doing so, after his grand defeat against All Might, if you will. So it's like pretty much, he did not have that ability when he gave the quirk to Ayama. Let's see, Shota Aizawa says in retrospect, if he really did, plant an explosive ability in the boy would trigger an event of betrayal and all that stuff. You wonder why would he murder the other peons as a lesson, or to threaten the family to death or something if they ever lied to him or double cross him. Let's see. As he thinks that the only thing that All for One planted into Ayama was the seed of fear and all that stuff, and his parents and all that stuff. With Aizawa asking Ayama if he's scared, but he's not talking at the moment, and he says, let's see, with him saying that he won't find many friends if he keeps sticking to be like that. He keeps asking him what he's afraid of, All for One himself. With Ayama finally answering yes, he's also scared that he can never sparkle and shine as his friends does. As apparently the more they express his faith in him, the more he loses faith in himself. And even if he can take the hand of friendship they offer, he'll never be able to. He doesn't think he will be able to face All for What. All for One. When the time comes and all that stuff. Not saying that, and he's wondering if he'll make the same mistakes as he did before. That's what he's afraid of. Let's see, he wants to leave it all behind, but to find some dark corner of the world where he can wait for death and all that stuff, because as you can see, he's really in a dark place right now. Though Aizawa says that, to try and reassure Oyama that he may be given, well, granted, he was being a bit realistic, saying, well, he may be given leniency. His sins will be here with him, forever. As he tells Ayama once, this war against, the villains is over, he may no longer have a home at UA. As he goes on about how those friends of yours like to sugarcoat things, but he's still going to tell it to him straight. As he's saying this, he's thinking he'll rip the fear out of him in order to get him to, by force if he has to. He tells him that, the only thing Ayama can do is fight, as it's the only thing he can do and all that stuff. Let's see. With Ayama going he knows all will be lost if they don't win this. He now must be a pawn for the heroes in order to make side equal, and he understands all that stuff. As all goes on about how he may no different than All for One, that might possibly be the case when it comes to how he intends to use him. All right, let me rephrase that. Aizawa may be no different from All for One in terms of using him, but having said that, he won't allow him to slink off haunted by the sins of his past and all that stuff, and die a pathetic death. Not as long as he's the hero course teacher and him being his student. As Ayama thinks about how Aizawa says, I still have no intention of expelling you. As he goes on about how one of the lessons he teaches his students are about living a life of burdened by guilt and all that stuff. And despite as ashamed as he is and all that stuff, he's asking him to still walk alongside the friends that are reaching out for him. They will protect him, he guarantees it, and tells him to stick with them and everything will be okay. And that seems to reassure Oyama at last, though he says, but he does wonder if, a single miscreant like him can even accomplish anything. Well, as Ritzy smiling, not going to realize he's, of course, still scared. A1B, which is like saying he's not the only one he's putting on this path. As we cut back to UA, and we see a bunch of, students from, I think, the, social studies course. I think maybe the ones that had the beef with Bakugo at one point. As one of them shouts out to, as one of the students says, it's time, let's go. The path that what is one we all walk together. As the person who responds is none other than Shinsho and all that stuff. Looking, finally seemed to be wearing his hero course gear, in which very much like Ayazawa's, ending the first chapter we're talking about. The story of how we all become heroes, part 3, chapter 340. First of all, LuckyChi, what are your thoughts on all this chapter?
I actually, it wasn't the chapter I was expecting coming off from the last one, but I think it was cool getting perspectives again from like All Might and Hawks, and then of course seeing Ragdoll again.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
with the formulating like the countermeasures and whatnot on what needs to be done with the League of Villains, and then with Dobby.
Fair enough, but yeah, let's see. I have to admit, it is interesting how All Might is taught to setting up their plan of what they need to do in order to win and all that stuff, particularly keep Shigaraki and All for One together, and it's now being confirmed that Shigaraki is indeed stronger than All for One at this point. So the student slash vessel has surpassed the master, if you will.
Yep.
And let's see. So there's that. So but let's see. But it's interesting how the first thing they need to do is, but in order to make sure to keep those two 10 kilometers away from each other, they need to get they need to first deal with Darby.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Let's see. So let's see. That's clearly what we know. Shoto and Endeavor are probably going to be doing when it comes to this final war arc, if you will, as they're preparing for this final war and all that stuff. While everyone else will probably be doing against each other's villains, and we probably have an idea who's going to be taking down Himiko Toga. But yeah, it's interesting that Ragdoll has been included in this group because, well, she's quirkless, but let's see, due to the fact that the villains are using her quirk, she wants to get involved in this somehow.
That's true.
Now, granted, I have to
interesting to say the least, but I mean, she has mentioned before that she's been helping out on the sidelines, even though she doesn't have a quirk. So
yeah. I do wonder if we're eventually going to get her quirk back again, or
that depends on if it's even possible. Because actually, no. Wait, I just answered my own question. Never mind. Because I forgot all for one, so that he can take away quirks, he can give quirks too. So
yeah, no, can he return it to the original users? I can't recall if that was a rule or not. Okay.
True. No, that's actually a good point. Yeah, I'm not sure about that either.
Okay, I just got a message from Mangareader saying that he will just join the next one and all that stuff, so he won't be joining us for the stream. So anyway, so it's just you and me, LuckyChi, but yeah. So that was like the case with, yeah, but we'll have to wait and see on that part. But at the very least, she's playing a role, and we're probably going to see more of the Pussycats, wild Pussycats at some point. But yeah, it's interesting that also that Hawks has been coming to the meeting and all that stuff. And yeah. So, and apparently Endeavor and Best Genius just going out in the lead and all that stuff while he's discussing the plans. But no, but the thing I've noticed is the fact that the key in order to turn the tide in their favor is, of course, getting Aoyama to, comply with their demands and all that stuff. Now, granted, the police chief or the police detective, I can't recall Tishki's role and all that, what's the actual official title is and all that stuff, still remains a bit skeptical given the current situation, which gets to what the main reason I titled this, let's see, subtitled this as Teacher 1-to-1, is the talk between Ayazawa and Ayama. But first off, LuckyChi, I think now's the time to get to it. What did you make of the Ayama twist, traitor reveal?
Well, I wasn't super surprised, per se, because this whole thing, you can kind of take this back to the remedial course arc at the very end when you had that one panel with Oyama like looking at the mirror and then Deku just having that expression. It was kind of like hinting that maybe Oyama's behind something. But that was before, we got that next chapter. But I remember when that chapter came out, people were like, yo, is Oyama like actually not on the good side? And that's always kind of been in the back of my mind where I'm like, well, he could be.
Yeah.
But,
it seemed to die down a bit, though. Let's see. But of course, I think many people started thinking perhaps Invisible Girl is, the spy. And heck, even I thought that, given some of the theories I watched. And heck, when the chapter cliffhanging with just, with Invisible Girl. Let's see, and I will admit, and Mangareader will tell you, I thought I was 100% convinced it was her, but then Koei played a fast one on me, and many others in the following chapter, and revealed that it was Ayama that was the spy. And damn, I have to admit, Koei, let's see. Now that is a red herring.
right?
This is how you do a red herring, people. But yeah, on one hand, let's see, I might have missed an opportunity to make something interesting with Invisible Girl, but we did get a brief scene of what she kind of looks like, what a Charlotte actually looks like, which is like, holy moly, that's probably the closest we're ever going to get to it. But yeah. But anyway, I do kind of must admit, I do find it interesting how it seems in shonen manga that at least one silly character turns out to be a lot more serious, or something more serious has happened to them and all that stuff. I mean,
why does that sound familiar now all of a sudden?
Yeah, yeah, certain manga that perhaps maybe we should not mention by name.
I mean, is it really that harmful?
Yeah,
I think people already know.
Yeah. Let's just say his name begins with T and ends with I.
Really? I thought it starts with O and ends with O.
Well, technically, when we first introduced to him, I guess technically he's supposed to be Senpai! And he's actually a serious villain. But yeah. Granted, they could have done that with Star Wars with the Darth Jar Jar theory if it ended up actually turning out to be true. But no. I think that's done and dusted in the water. But yeah. So you pretty much were down on it. You were on board with it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit, it's a very interesting conversation because, as we know, for many people, it's probably expected that Ayazawa to be a lot less forgiving with like a betrayal like this and all that stuff. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, for sure.
But he seems to be very understanding about how he was a quirkless boy, vulnerable and being exploited by the villains. Well, granted, he's not fully excusing him for his actions and all that stuff, but as long as he's his teacher, he is going to help him and all that stuff. And maybe give him a shot of redemption, even if it might not be 100% fully possible. In many ways, it could be a similar situation with Endeavor, but perhaps with maybe much worse consequences, I guess you could say. I don't know. What do you think, LuckyChi?
Repeat that one more time.
In many ways, Ayama's situation kind of reminds me of Endeavor in a bit.
It kind of does, for sure.
Let's see, they've done. Let's see, well, clearly they've done some. Let's see, something very horrific. Well, let's see that now that the public knows that. Let's see, there's those that are not going to probably be able to fully forgive them and all that stuff, even if they try to go down the path of redemption. Because there's no doubt that it's granted so far it's only I think the authorities and the members of Class 1A that know that, Oriyama is like a spy and all that stuff, though. Granted, if the public probably found out, there's probably going to be a lot of, anger and all that stuff aimed towards him. Oh, yeah. Let's see, but yeah. But I do like how Aizawa was trying to get him to face his fears and, make sure that and try and face them head on, even if he's still a little bit scared, in order to try and push towards the path of him becoming a hero in the end. But it is interesting about how Witty Ayama's state of mind is, because he feels so guilty that even when the faith that his friends have in him and classmates, it just makes him feel more guilty, and he just wants to crawl in a place to die for what he's done. But after what happened with him and after this talk with Aizawa, he seems like he's much more convinced and has more of a hope for the future, if you will. Even though he has no idea what someone like him can do. Let's see, but yeah. Another thing to note, I do find it interesting how Aizawa kind of compares himself to a bit of All for One and how he's going to try and use Ayama a bit. But yeah, but unlike him, he's giving him a shot of a chance of redemption, even though it may never be truly forgiven. I mean, he may never be able to fully properly join 1A again, and all that stuff. But yeah, but I guess it goes to show you just how much Aizawa never truly gives up on a student.
Yeah.
Given the fact that he only pretends to expel them, but then gets them back in and all that stuff to give them a sort of hero's death, if you will, due to what happened to his late friend. Anyway, but probably the most interesting thing to see happen is the return of Shinso from Class 1C.
And a very Spider-Man-like pose, if you will.
Yes, very Spider-Man indeed. Let's see. It's a particular way of let's see, Aizawa's band-aids and all that stuff, and it seems that he's clearly mastered the thing. And in many ways, he looks like a mini Aizawa, doesn't he?
He does.
In many ways, it reminds me of Mike Guy and Rockley in a sense, in that sort of teacher-student look-alike thing. So I have to admit, what do you make of the design? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
For Shinso?
Yeah.
I like it for the most part.
Yeah, I have to admit, still. Granted, it seems everyone's got in their hero costume except Midoriya.
Which Deku gets me curious with what his new look's gonna be now, because but everyone knows that so far. I think Deku's ragged look for his costume, when he left UA, I actually thought it was pretty cool. But now, what is it gonna look like? I got no idea.
And from the way that he was talking with Hatsume, it doesn't look like she has time to develop a proper costume for him and all that stuff. Just mostly just those, which he just rebuilding the tools he needed. But yeah, so all that stuff. But either way, I'm not sure. But yeah, but it seems like a lot of previous characters are making their return. Let's see. Higake. It's Higake. Did I say that right? Or
Hagakure, I think is how you say
yeah, Hagakure and Shinso for this final act or saga, if you will. So yeah, there's that. So, and not to mention the big two of the big three, and I think some of the heroes from the other academies. But But yeah, at the moment we've got that, and we're seeing how we are all being heroes. It seems to have concluded with the return of Shinso. We do know that Ritzy Koei did say he would be playing a big role at the end of this in the final saga, right?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just wondering how much of a role he will play, given the fact that his quirk could be very useful. Now, granted, you better be careful against, let's see, Shigaraki and All for One, because with a quirk like that, you can bet that they would probably try to steal it. At the very least, I'm probably going to say Shinso has probably become a lot more like let's see, probably be able to fight quite a bit more like Arzar now. Anyway, before I drag this chapter on any longer, out of overall score, what would you give it?
Overall score? I think maybe around an 8 out of 10, which is like around a great rating on
Yeah,
the rating scale.
yeah, it's probably a 7 to 8 out of 10. It's more of an exposition on what first half is more of exposition on what the heroes are planning to do in order to in the upcoming war against the villains, in order how to separate them and all that stuff. While the second half was mostly just Aizawa having a one-to-one with Ayama, trying to get him out of his depression and try and see if he can walk on the path to redeeming himself. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. It seems to be 100%. It seems to be from the doctor's examination that seems to be concerned that Ayama does not have the leggy nugget bomb thing, trigger bomb inside him. Which, how do you feel on that, LuckyChi? You think that's the case? Do you think Ayama still may or may not have a bomb in him? Because Mangareader was wondering that himself. I'm just wondering how you feel about it.
It's possible.
You think it's still likely, or you think it's unlikely at this point?
I'd say it's like 70-30. 70% chance it's not there, 30% chance it's still there. That's where I would range it at.
Fair enough, but yeah, like I said, this chapter is 7 to 8 out of 10. Anyway, now on to chapter 341, the story of how we all became heroes, part -1.
Again, like I said, very Kubo-esque.
Yeah, although in this case, instead of like the first 3 chapters were focusing on the heroes and their planning, we now seem to be cutting towards the villains. As the cover page is Himiko Toga covered in blood, trying to open her mouth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But of course, this is not why I'm calling it the Mutant Revolution. You will get to that in a minute, but let's see, onto the chapter. As we cut back to what appears to be Hiroko Toma's like home and all that stuff, and we see a wall with all like these painted leaflets and spray paints and all that stuff, telling the people to die demon, saying it's with like a bunch of people, some people from the public, blaming Toga's family for having her and all that stuff. It's like, it's your fault we have this psycho villain and all that stuff. As we see a bunch of footsteps walking in, as it's clearly a sign that it's her and all that stuff. As we hear the words of her family saying, we did the best they could with her, but nothing worked. As they go on about how this girl was demonic. As we see Himiko Toga walking inside the house, and it seems like as the family have left the house, the place has also been vandalized. And she's just looking about. As she thinks back to her she looks, I think, to when the parents used to, I think sometimes families in Japan do, maybe even families just families in general, used to mark how tall their kids are, at what age and all that stuff. I know that my mom did that with me and my brother and all that stuff. With her thinking back about how no one would ever think how her parents said, no one if you accept you if you behave that way. Let's see, and tells her, can't you just learn to have a normal, just live a normal life, please? So no, but all the time and all that stuff. As she thinks about how someone said Himiko's face is too scary, as she just walks by and seems like reaches to her room, which has the words written "Demon's Room" on it. as she thinks about how her parents said, restrain yourself for once. We're telling you this is for your own good. As she enters her room, only to find it completely empty, except for a few markings like idiot vampire. As she looks around, thinking back to when she was a kid, wishing she wants to be a little birdie, flying away and all that stuff. Let's see how she wants to be Key with those dimples when she smiles, so lovely. And as we see her sleeping and how she's biting herself in the hand. About how every night she dreams of a dancing red sparrow that does a tap dance on her tummy. And sooner or later it rips her tummy open and dances a jig inside her. It stains her red all over, making her, in her eyes, so cute and all that stuff. Thinking how it was such a pleasant dream and made her happy as we see her continuing to bite herself. With Himiko Toga thinking how her family had thrown everything that she ever had here away. She's sort of smiling a bit, but we can tell that it's clearly affected her in some way. As she leaves her house, Darby asks, he never realized, making a joke about how he never knew that the nut job like her had a heart and all that stuff. But even she can get caught up in emotions as she's just sitting on the windowsill. As, let's see, she just comments about she was just curious about her old house, saying that's a total normal thing to do. With Darby just Ritzy asking her if she's ready for what's coming next. And she asks him what that might be. Let's see. And he's talked about them putting an end to this rotten world of hero society, if you will. Though she says it's a little late to ask her now, as her choice has been made. As Ritzy, Darby's satisfied with her answer. Ritzy says whether they're crying or smiling, the sun will come out tomorrow. And so he says, let's smile, Himiko Toga, as he does a smile himself. As it clearly he's shown he's burning her house down to the ground, if you will. The sense giving her sort of gritty sense of no turning back. Let's see, with her one thing, Ritzy smiling is why we live our lives and all that stuff. Let's see, though she comments about how Toro will get them caught with them burning the house down, but says that was awfully kind of him and all that stuff. As Ritzy, Darby goes about how court society don't go to the juice to take them down and all that stuff. Although he says it's not so much as kindness, it's more like he's just twisting the knife in Endeavor some more. As many people say, this will probably remind people like, okay, this is Endeavor's son and all that stuff. Now he gives Ritzy Toga something to use now and all that stuff when she of course transforms. If it's a person close to her heart and all that stuff, you'll be able to use their quirk while drinking the blood. So it reveals that before, Makia whisked them away and all that stuff, he was able to grab some of the blood from the original body. Let's see. As it's revealed that, let's see, Darby has given Toga twice his blood. Let's see. As telling her that this will help that sad parade to keep marching and all that stuff. As he says, the ones having the last laugh will be them. As we've got a double page of let's see, Toga holding twice his blood with a whole shots of twice in the background, showing the threat of his massive army quirk, of his a bit quirk can do. Anyway, we cut back to the island where Spinner is with, I believe, Skeptic and is it Skeptic and All for One? I forgot. What's that dude's name in, let's see, Meta Liberation Armies?
Which one?
The one that fought twice, or the one that tried to break twice.
I think it was Skeptic, right?
Yeah, I think it's Skeptic. Let me just check.
I'm pretty sure it was Skeptic.
Skeptic, my hero. Let's see. Let me just Meta Liberation army. Let's see. The members are. I'm just looking at the wiki, everyone. Sorry for the delay.
You're good.
Let's see. Yeah, it's Skeptic.
Figured.
Yeah, B rank villain, apparently. Let's see. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. Let's see. Those three are just busy minding their own business when I think they hear Shigaraki crying out in pain with Spinner being concerned, asking if he's okay. Though we see this appears to be some sort of. At first, we seem to see some mutated form and all that stuff, but as we get close, as it goes back in, we see it's gone back inside Shigaraki.
Mm-hmm.
All for one, though he appears worried. All for one, saying Toma, it's not to worry, as Toma is recovering well, as he conquers the Quirk's doomsday theory and all that stuff. You know, the one that the doctor theorized, which would probably happen to Hero Society at some point. Though Spinner is still a bit concerned, asks if he's still Shigaraki. No, he said, with All for One saying, why, yes, of course. As we see, Spinner is currently holding one of Shigaraki's last hand. Anyway, Skeptic has told Spinner, who's trying to change the subject, saying he's pretty sure he knows that what proportion of villains designated criminals are regarded as heteromorphs like him. That no matter how hard the heroes and the government have tried to eliminate the society of that, try to illuminate their society, try to make people more tolerant of these quirk users. The light can't reach every dark corner of the society. Apparently, plenty of heteromorphs hold deep grudges against, so-called heroes. And those who have remained have now paved the way for when the League of Villains started out, the world was exposed to, Spinner, so everyone had his eyes on him. And it began with a bunch of wannabes copying his costume, which in truth he was actually copying Staines' costume, if you will. And now he's a guiding light for the heteromorphs everywhere, at least all the ones that are, mad at Hero Society. As I think we cut to a panel where Midori was fighting some of these heteromorphs back when he went on his solo career. Kind of interesting looking back at that bit, but yeah.
It's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah. With Spinner being skeptical about him being some big messiah and all that stuff. Let's see, so as he's going about how he's not serving some great cause and all that stuff, he's only here for... trying to say that he's only here for Shigaraki, but Skeptic says the die has been cast and there's no going back from this. Apparently, while the escape convicts are one matter, the common rioters in the streets are following Spinner's lead, if you will. Anyway, as he goes on about how through Redestro can no longer pull that trigger, Spinner can, as he's now the one that can lead the revolution, if you will. As Skeptic hands him some piece of data from the looks of things, or some USB stick, or some disk. I can't quite tell. Though Spinner thinks that no matter how an average dude like him feels about the situation, they're past the point of no return and all that stuff. As All for One talks about, the first solid step from him would be to give them the necessary courage. As he tells them to bring it all down. Anyway, Spinner, thinking, as he seems to resign to his fate, says no more overthinking it. He's only for, the only one whose sake he's for is Shigaraki. As we get a double panel, as I think All for One is saying the words, "No, there's Ichi, everyone can be somebody's hero," as we get a double panel of all these heteromorph villains coming towards, I think, the League of Villains hideout, and one of them looks like the sludge villain from the very first chapter.
Kind of does look like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. And for the let's see, and maybe a few others that we've seen, but either way, it ends the chapter of like all these heteromorph villains coming towards Spinner as he's now their shining light and all that stuff, and that ends the second chapter. I have to admit, what a chapter, if you will, LuckyChi.
Yeah. Okay, compared to the last chapter, this one I would say was something for sure.
Oh yeah. Let's see. There's one thing I do love is that Koei is really good at focusing on the villains when he wants to.
Yeah.
As we saw with the Meta Liberation Army arc, he just seems to find this good balance, and it's interesting where he does like the -1 thing. So it looks like let's see, we had 3 chapters focusing on the heroes and preparing for them. It seems like if we had to guess, we're going to now have 3 chapters focused on the villains and what they plan to do and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But first things first, let's see. Let's start with Himiko Toka returning to her childhood home. Pretty depressing, I have to. I'm
not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, huh, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and in many ways, we've seen the state of the house. It's clearly been abandoned. We have no idea what happens to the family, but clearly we see, due to the fact that how known as a public villain she's become, we've seen that other members of the public angry at this family for having this villain in their midst. Have vandalized with like stick paper notes and spray paint about it's your fault we have this villain. She's a scum, die vampire. All that stuff, monster and all that stuff. You can just see how just much society hates her.
Yeah.
And anyone associated with her. In many ways, while we all know how we've already seen it happen with if most, if not all, nearly all of Hero Society, of whole of the public society in Japan has turned against Endeavor the moment they found about his past and what he'd done to Dabi and all that stuff.
Right.
In many ways, this is probably going to be worse for this normal civilian family, though I doubt we'll ever see them. But probably be worse because none of them were like heroes and all that stuff. They never had they can't really do anything to try and amend for the stuff. They have to live with this kind of thing for probably the rest of their lives.
Probably.
In many ways, I'm on the defense that you shouldn't really judge individuals for like their family members. Everyone has that one member, black sheep in the family, if you will.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Somewhere. Where it's like, it's whether it be politically, religiously, or just generally just not a nice person.
Yeah.
Or just values different from you and all that stuff. But this is kind of how I see it. Seems to be the case with him and Toga. But I do kind of feel, but even though she's a villain, I do kind of feel sorry for her because due to where her quirk is and her behavior, she can't never really properly be like everyone else, even though her parents tried to force her into, even though they went probably the wrong way about it. But it seems like her parents hate her so much that as she's thinking back to what they all tried to do to, try and make her act like a normal girl, or when it was revealed that she, turned out to be a villain, they tried to distance themselves from her and all that stuff. But I do feel a bit sorry for her when she enters her room and she sees that there's nothing there. The parents have gotten rid of any trace of her, if you will, trying to distance themselves from her as much as possible. That's probably a very sad moment for, I suppose, even the most biggest villain, I guess you could say.
Oh, for sure.
Granted, I'm not saying that I condone Toga's actions, but I can feel a sense of humanity, but realizing that regardless, she needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's interesting is the conversation she ends up having with Darby afterwards. I was surprised that she seems to have gotten sentimental, though. She said that she thinks that this is normal, though. It's estimate. I find interesting that Darby is being a bit sympathetic to Toga, since, as he revealed to like Hawks, he doesn't really necessarily fully really care about Shigaraki in the league. He's using them for his own means, and he could be well doing this here, but he seems to be able to at least somewhat able to connect with like Toga on some sort of emotional level, if you will. Granted, amongst Ritzy for Toga, amongst the League of Villains left, the only ones amongst her original group that remains are Darby, Shigaraki, and Spinner. Since Mr. Compress has been arrested and Twice is now dead. Well, granted, Darby seems to have a sort of understanding of what she's going through, as they now, as they both realize that there's no going back and all that stuff. She realizes there's no going back. He's making sure of it. Does her sort of solid and burns her house down, in a sense, showing that there's no going back from the path she's chosen. And surprisingly, she's offered, and the way she's offered the gift, and it seems like, in many ways, what we thought would be the end of Twice seems to not be the case now.
You're right.
After LuckyChi, were you surprised when it revealed that Darby had a blood of the original Twice?
At first I was, but then once I started thinking more about it, I was like, actually, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we know how...
Like, it was surprising at first, but then like when I gave more thought into it, I was like, well, no, that actually would make sense for him to have some blood on him.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's interesting because, let's see... In many ways, when Twice died, many thought, like, this seems like such a waste given what you just did within the previous arc, but even though it was probably a very emotional death.
Well, not anymore.
Well, it seems like Koei has managed to find a way of bringing Twice back without necessarily bringing him back.
He said, nope. It's like, oh, y'all were having complaints, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
But through Toga, he can come back, well, because now she can transform into Twice and use his abilities.
Yep.
So it looks like the Twice army will have a return, and despite Hawk's best efforts, it may be too late, but it's interesting now that, when the League of Villains numbers seem to have dwindled a bit, it seems like they can now increase again thanks to Himiko Toga with Twice's blood.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So, yeah. Which will be very interesting. It makes me wonder, this is what Uraraka will have to deal with when, she has a rematch against, Toga, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, granted, I definitely think Suyu is also going to get involved in the fight because she also has a part to play. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. But out of curiosity, you think Twice Toga can be saved?
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot you would have to do to make it work, but
yeah,
maybe.
As we do know that, Uraraka has been thinking about Toga lately and what she can probably do to help her in some way.
Yeah.
But who knows? But the stakes have definitely been raised against Uraraka when it comes to their rematch, and hopefully this will show people that despite the fact that Toga is in fact one of the most deadly villains out there, especially with what her quirk can now do.
Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, but the other villain that's got to focus on is one that in many ways felt like the one that got the least amount, but now it seems like it's finally getting his chance to shine a bit. And perhaps not in the way he intended, is Spinner. And the reason why I called this chapter the Mutant Revolution, as All For One and Skeptic try to persuade him to accept his role as the leading face of the, heteromorph, quirk users revolution, if you will. You there, LuckyChi?
Yeah, I'm still here.
As we see that he's a bit reluctant, as he only wants to follow Shigaraki, as he's become completely loyal to him after the last few arcs.
I mean, and that makes sense. All things considered.
I mean, he did first join to become like a Stain, carbon copy clone, but as the time went on, he became, more loyal to what Shigaraki wanted to do and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But granted, it'd be very interesting to see if Spinner does encounter Stain at some point, but who knows? But anyway, but it's interesting how and we can still see that Spinner is still showing his loyalty to Shigaraki, showing his concern as he's going through his transformations and pain and all that stuff. Which I have to admit, that was very creepy of the mutated form that Shigaraki had briefly before going back inside him.
Yeah, I was gonna what is going on with you right there?
But anyway, yeah. According to All For One, this is apparently the Quark Doom theory. That his doctor friend who admitted and all that stuff. But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. But it's interesting, but yeah. But I do like how All For One and Skeptic try to persuade him that you now have led the way for the heteromorph revolution. And we end up seeing some of those things. And interesting that Spinner has accepted his fate as the figurehead of this movement, if you will. Even though, as long as it's for Shigaraki's sake. As All For One tells him the words that everyone can be somebody's hero. It seems he has become these villains' hero, if you will. But it's interesting how he points out how there have been carbon copies, during there's just about many carbon copies of them causing riots around just as escaped convicts, as we saw Midoriya fight them. But yeah, but the one thing I'm interested in is some of these random heteromorph villains that I believe we may have seen in something. I mean, the sludge villain definitely is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering, but there's this one with there's this one next to him with or at least one close to him with a sword. I'm wondering, does he look familiar?
I'm not sure.
So at first I'm wondering, is this the Chimera dude from the second movie, which would be cool if it was, but who knows? But yeah. But so what do you make of the Mutant Revolution, LuckyChi?
I thought it was pretty cool, all things considered.
Mm-hmm. In many ways, it does give me this sort of X-Men vibe. With the Brotherhood of evil mutants, or or just whatever villainous mutant villain group of causing a revolution against hero society. So, out of curiosity, what do you think will be? As we see the League of Villains are increasing in number, if you will, with Heteromorphs and Hikatoga's Quirk. I'm just curious, who do you think would be Spinner's final opponent? Out of curiosity.
That's what makes me curious. I don't know.
Because he's never really had a set rivalry compared to Shoto with Darby and
maybe Bakugo? I say maybe. I think I can talk about that.
Part of me thinks that
or it could be Aoyama too. It could be that.
Let's see. I'm possibly, if I had to guess myself, maybe possibly either, since
Or two.
Since he's supposed to be one of the main characters, of course, and not to mention he had an encounter with Spinner before.
Yeah.
Not to mention he was a hero that was misjudged against by Stain, while let's see, Ida never really liked Spinner being a Stain ripoff, if you will. But yeah. So, that's the chapter. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think that we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah. So we pretty much got, we pretty much, from these last two chapters, we know what the hero strategy for the upcoming war is, and we now got an idea of what the villain strategy is for the upcoming war. With how they're getting people to rally behind Darby rally behind Spinner, while Darby gives Toga twice his blood, signifying a return of some sort.
Yeah.
While Shigaraki recovers from the Doomsday quirk theory.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I think I'll give this chapter a 9 out of 10.
That's where I was thinking too. So it'd be like around an amazing grade for me.
Yeah. As the heroes get strategy, getting together, all we can be heroes seems to be done for now. We're focusing on the villains, and we're probably going to get a few more of it, if we're judging by the previous chapters. Yeah. I like the insight to Toga's character, looking back from her family, the sort of conversation she had with Darby. I'm wondering if she's crushing on him a little bit, but who knows?
Who knows?
And Darby giving her twice his blood, which he's clearly using for his own ends because, he always found twice to be quite useful for his cause. But who knows what Darby's become like now. And Spinner embracing his role as the figurehead for the Heteromorphs revolution, if you will, against the Hero Society. Anyway, LuckyChi, thank you for joining me, and I hope to look forward to you for the next chapter, though I believe
I think we're on break.
The break, yeah.
Yeah, we're on break right now, so it's going to be not next week, but I think the week after next.
Yeah.
Yeah. So possibly a Valentine's Day stream. Possibly.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Better hope something good happens between Izuku and Ochiko because... Okay, don't set yourself up for expectations on that, because if y'all are hoping for that, I don't want to say told you so, but temper expectations.
I once made a mistake of thinking that due to the fact that return of Hatsume, we're probably going to get another Uraraka jealous moment when repeated the last time Uraraka encountered her, with Midoriya doing a very out of context face there.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that did not end up being the case, and Mangareader told me so.
Yep. So if y'all expect a Valentine's Day moment, look, it could happen. I'm gonna be the one to say, just temper expectations and don't be disappointed if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, for we know, LuckyChi, you might come up with a My Hero Academia. A Valentine's podcast again if you want, though. Who knows?
It might be hard. Maybe next year. Maybe.
Let's see, but yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll do some Valentine's discussion stream or something about ships on my stream discussions around Valentine's Day, but who knows? But for now, let's see. We've said all we've got to say, so I'm Blue Star Saber.
I'm LuckyChi.
And we are signing off. Thank you for joining us, everyone, if you tuned in or if you ended up watching this at a later date. And let's see, have a good day.
And if you don't get an Izuku and Ochiko moment next chapter, just blame Blue. That's all I'm going to say.
You just had to bring in the whole cursed child thing. But yeah. But anyway, goodbye, everyone. Plus Ultra.
Plus Ultra.
With that, we're done.
That was